Jayapal was a state senator when she joined us at our 2015 convention. And it was crystal clear then that she was going to be a lawmaker we could count on. That has been proven to be true over these last 6 years. Her work in the US Congress demonstrates her commitment to making real the freedom to thrive that we want for ourselves, our families, our communities. Representative Jayapal consistently stands for what's right, as she has done by urging the Biden administration to stand against violence and for the humanity of the Palestinian people in the horrific and escalating war happening as we speak. We have a true champion with us tonight, a woman who leads fiercely with compassion, undaunted by the height of the obstacles, and always continuing forward to make our world a better place, whether through foreign policy, immigration reform, or Medicare and college for all. Please join me in welcoming United States Congresswoman from the 7th Congressional District, Pramila Jayapal.
Karen, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. You truly are my sister in the struggle, and I have been so privileged to work with you in close partnership through these many years, even before I got to the state Senate, organizing in the streets. And what a treat for me to hear Fernando, who is such a friend and longtime advocate and partner in the struggle for justice. And Fernando, congratulations to you. It's so beautiful to see you honored tonight. I'm not surprised at all, of course, because you've been doing this work for so long. And I think it speaks to your leadership and also AFT and the recognition of you as a leader in your organizing. So what a wonderful evening for me to be a part of. And I thank AFT's executive board and your regional leadership and all of the incredible members that are tuning in tonight. It's an amazing honor to be joining you as the proud representative for Washington's 7th Congressional District, the first person of color that Democrats in our state ever sent to Congress, and one of only 24 naturalized citizens to serve in Congress today, and the elected chair of the 93-member-strong Congressional Progressive Caucus in the House. But maybe most important, I'm an organizer through and through, and I'm privileged to have been organizing and struggling and fighting alongside AFT in the streets as a state senator, as Karen said, and now in Congress championing educators and education and collective bargaining as a member of the House Committee on Education and Labor. You all know about the power of organizing. I mean, I am just amazed and delighted by all the tremendous work you did in the state legislature. I remember standing with you to advocate for SB 5194 in the state Senate. And now that bill is on the governor's desk. And because of your efforts, Washington State will add 200 new full-time tenure-track faculty at community college campuses across our state, while also ensuring that we're centering the ever important equity and diversity at this critical time in our country's struggle for racial justice. And I also want to thank you for your work to reduce the residency requirement for undocumented students from 3 years to 1 year. That is a huge win. And for those of you who know me and know my history, starting and leading the largest immigrant advocacy organization in Washington State, One America, you know that this win for immigrant rights, for students and for educators throughout Washington is so critical. And you also fought for mental health at a time when we're dealing with all the added strains on an already burdened mental health system, of dealing with the pandemic on top of that. And finally, thank you for the organizing you did year after year, leading all the way to this year, never giving up to get the capital gains tax passed. Finally, in Washington State, we're going to begin ensuring that millionaires, billionaires, and corporations pay their fair share so that we can invest in working families in our communities. I wear my organizing badge with pride. It was 2 decades of organizing for immigrant, civil, human, and workers' rights, for economic, racial, and gender justice. Fernando is absolutely right. It's all intersectional. I'm not a woman on Monday, an immigrant on Tuesday, a mom on Wednesday, and a worker on Thursday. I'm all of those things all of the time. And that intersectionality that AFT brings to all of your work is so critical. And our state is one of the most union-dense states in the country, which, believe me, when I sit in Congress today, I think about that all the time. Unions helped build the middle class, and AFT and our state's labor movement helped lead us there on so many issues, from being the first state in the country to index minimum wage to inflation to paid family leave and so many other critically important wins. But you know, and I know, that years of Republican-led, corporate-backed attacks have decimated the ability for workers to collectively stand up for a fair and safe workplace where every worker is treated with dignity. And that's why I was so proud to introduce, as a lead sponsor, the PRO Act, which will put power back into the hands of workers and guarantee the right to organize across the country. It's about standing strongly with the heroic workers carrying America through the pandemic. It's about leveling the playing field so that Amazon workers and Bessemer can actually organize to have a union and rights on the job and workplace democracy. The House proudly passed the PRO Act in March, and now we're calling on the Senate to follow our lead and pass the legislation that invests in working people, families, and unions. Educators like you and other workers across America organized in historic numbers, and Black, brown, indigenous, poor, and working people delivered Democrats the White House, the Senate, and the House in November. That is a clear mandate for bold, transformative change. Now it's on us to deliver for you. And let me make it very clear, there is no arcane, racist Senate procedure like the filibuster that should stop us from delivering. That's why at the Congressional Progressive Caucus, we have prioritized ending the filibuster and refusing to let the tyranny of the minority rule in the Senate. So let's pass the PRO Act over Republican obstruction and get that bill signed into law. It's been a really long, hard 4 years, and then an equally long, devastating last year and a half since the pandemic hit. But COVID also showed us something else. It showed us how deeply interconnected we are and have always been. And you, our educators, a building block of our families and our communities, you did what you have always done. You stepped up, you worked wonders. You switched to online lessons and classes. AFT bus drivers stepped in to help deliver meals to students on free and reduced lunch so that they could still access food, as well as educational materials and tech devices, hotspots, other resources that families needed, especially critical in rural and high poverty districts. In North Mason School District, for example, where there are schools where more than 70% of the students qualify for free and reduced lunch, it was you, drivers, that delivered food and necessary supplies to families, so at least they didn't have to worry about putting breakfast and lunch on the table, given all the other worries. And of course, the crisis has not ended, and neither has your heroism. Today, many of you are welcoming your students back to classrooms and doing as much as you can to protect and support them. And all of you as educators, support staff, cleaning staff, cafeteria workers, and administrators. So I can't thank you enough. But to me, as an organizer, to you as organizer, words of thanks aren't enough. And that's why I've been working in Washington, D.C. to deliver these robust resources that invest in educators, in workers, and in families. Now, earlier this year, we Democrats delivered to the people the American Rescue Plan, the biggest, boldest relief package really in the history of the country. A package that totaled 10% of our annual GDP to be spent in 1 year. That is phenomenal, but most phenomenal of all, it is a package where every single piece is a progressive priority. It puts money directly in people's pockets. It puts shots in arms. It gets aid into our communities. And the Progressive Caucus played a pivotal role in ensuring that the package was as bold as it was, and that we got those survival checks, that we got the unemployment assistance, the child tax credit, and so much more to the people. The American Rescue Plan also invested $655 million for higher education institutions throughout our state. And in the 7th district alone, my district alone, that translated into more than $171 million for Seattle area colleges and universities. That's more than $106 million for the University of Washington, but also $11 million for Seattle Central, $10 million for Edmonds Community College, $8 million for Shoreline, and $6 million apiece for North Seattle College and South Seattle College. At least half of that funding that each institution is receiving is supposed to be distributed in the form of emergency cash assistance grants for students who are facing hunger, homelessness, and other hardship. We are making a historic investment in helping our local colleges, universities, and students safely recover from this public health and economic crisis, because we know that their success, all of your success, is critical to our region's success. And so this aid will help students ensure that they have the resources and support they need to keep education on track while also helping our schools in the months ahead. The relief package also has nearly $130 billion to help K-12 schools reopen safely, and that includes K-12 schools funding, but also Head Start funding across our region. So there's a lot of resources to help educators, our schools, and our communities, but we're fighting for more. The American Families Plan and the American Jobs Plan is next, and it has to be a once-in-a-generation lifetime, once-in-a-generation opportunity. What the American Rescue Plan taught us is that people of all parties support us when we enact bold populist policies that deliver for them. Not just Democrats, but Republicans and independents across the country actually supported the American Rescue Plan, even though not a single Republican in Congress voted for that rescue plan. But that's why I'm working to make sure that we go big, we go bold, and we go fast in the next proposal. That means making access to childcare universal, establishing paid family and medical leave, investing in affordable housing, and ensuring that we strengthen the care and family infrastructure. And a key piece of that is fully supporting our educators and our public schools and higher education institutions. Now, we're also pushing to make sure that the essential immigrant workers who have carried us through this long pandemic are finally given a pathway to citizenship. It is only just and fair. I also believe that the Families Plan should include expanding healthcare because, like you, I believe that healthcare should be a human right. That's why we have to bring down the price of prescription drugs for all Americans who are paying over twice as much as those in other countries. And then we should invest those savings of hundreds of billions of dollars into lowering the Medicare eligibility age and expanding Medicare benefits to include dental, vision, and hearing. Now, you all know, and Karen has known for a long time, and I'm so grateful for AFT's support, I'm the lead sponsor of the Medicare for All bill in the House. I have not stopped fighting for that, and I'm going to do everything I can to get us there. We need to stop this for-profit healthcare system that puts profits over patients. And expanding Medicare in this way that we're talking about in this next bill, something that the president lifted up in his speech to Congress a few weeks ago, is an absolutely essential first step. One final piece of the president's proposal is around higher education. He has put forth 2 free years of community college for everyone across the country. And some of you remember that that was my bill in the state Senate. I worked with you at AFT to introduce that free community college bill. It was called the Washington Promise back then. And people said we were crazy. Remember, Karen? People said it couldn't be done. Well, here we are now with the President of the United States saying it needs to be done, not just in Washington, but across the country. And it will be done. But I actually believe more needs to happen. You see, I always say that being a progressive just means that you are the first to the best and most just idea. And that's why when I first came to Congress in 2017, I introduced my College for All Act with Senator Bernie Sanders. And I'm so proud to have it endorsed by local, state, and national organizations, including the international AFT. My bill not only makes community college and trade schools tuition free for everyone, but it also eliminates tuition and fees at 4-year public colleges and universities for families making up to $125,000. Young people across this country are in this horrific, untenable position today. They have to make a decision to either go to college or go into a lifetime of massive student loan debt or be locked out of massive parts of the job force. So it's no surprise that more than 45 million people, including nearly 70% of the students in the most recent graduating class, hold more than $1.8 trillion of student loan debt. When I first started running for Congress, that number was 1.3 trillion. That was only in 2016. We are already at 1.8 trillion. That's more than the total credit card debt in America, and the average student is taking out $30,000 in debt just to receive a bachelor's degree. And we know that nearly 1 in 4 of those borrowers were behind on payments even before this pandemic hit. Now, like many crises in this country, the student debt crisis hits the hardest for women and communities of color. That's just the truth. 2/3 of student debt is held by women. More than 90% of Black undergraduates and more than 72% of Latinx students leave college with student loan debt, compared to 66% of white students and 51% of Asian American students. And tragically, 40% of borrowers never even got their degree, and yet they're left paying the debt for years to come. That's why we're pushing President Biden right now to use his executive authority to immediately cancel at least $50,000 of student loan debt per borrower. But we also have to make sure that working families never have to take out these crushing loans to receive a higher education in the first place. And that's where College for All comes in. College for All not only is tuition free and free fee for the 2-year colleges, for the 4-year colleges, for those earning up to $125,000, but it also doubles the maximum Pell Grant and helps create more full-time tenure track positions to address the academic staffing crisis. And it guarantees that students and families earning under $125,000 a year can also attend HBCUs, Hispanic serving institutions, Asian American, Native American, and Pacific Islander serving institutions, and other minority institutions, tuition-free and debt-free. Now, how do we pay for all of this? It's easy. We can just tax Wall Street. This is not hard. A small financial transactions tax pays for everything that I have spoken about, and it is not just necessary, it's right, and it's an investment in our collective future. There's so much more that we've passed in the House and the Senate must pass, from the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, to the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, to immigration reform, to getting money out of politics with the For the People Act. We have a lot to do, and it's urgent. But with your help, we have a real opportunity for taking steps towards real justice, real justice. It's time for those big dreams and for bold action. I want to just end with this. Some of you know my story. Education is an issue that is deeply personal to me. I came to America from India, where I was born, when I was just 16 years old, by myself. My parents took their last $5,000 in savings, and they used it all to send me here by myself, an incredible sacrifice on their part that would end up keeping them on a different continent than me for the rest of our lives. And believe me, I'm feeling that right now as they deal with COVID, both of them, and as we look at India and funeral pyres burning across the country. But my parents did this because they believe in the power of education. This was the place, the United States of America, that they believed was the place I would get the best education and have the brightest future. Really, my parents sent me here because they believed in you. They believed in you, the educators who hold open doors for so many futures, the educators who hold and shape what is often fragile hope into a bright tomorrow, the educators who gave one 16-year-old Indian immigrant girl with nothing in her pockets the tools that she needed to grow and thrive and become the first South Asian American woman ever elected to the United States House of Representatives. So to AFT members everywhere, thank you for serving our children, for serving our families, our communities, and our state. And thank you for changing lives every step of the way.
Oh boy, that is just, it's got my heart beating. I just wish that we were in person and could actually have a hug and really give our gratitude so much more directly. I've been watching the chat as you've been talking. We are so fortunate. What I said earlier, we are so fortunate to have you as a champion for all the things that we stand for, and a role model for forging ahead, for keeping our eye on what we need and what we should have, and not letting anything stop us. We will follow your lead and learn everything we can from you, Congresswoman Jayapal. I am so proud and honored to know you and have you here with us this evening. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, AFT.